Is menopause coming for you? Probably. Welcome back to Where Feng Shui Meets Fashion. This episode is about my menopause journey. I am diving into laser therapy, HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy, and lifestyle options. This may not sound very feng shui or fashion related, but stay with me because it is. Trust me, I can make anything about feng shui. It is about our relationship with our environment and the divine. So, our bodies are our most intimate environment. Menopause is the great equalizer. If you were born a woman, it's coming for you. So, let me help illuminate a more empowering path and share my experience. So recently, I have feng shuied everything in my life, from my wardrobe to my home to my vehicle, and now it's my body's turn. So listen, folks, the reality is that I'm 55 and I've been educating myself about menopause for the last few years, preparing for what I understand is inevitable. I'm aware I appear younger than my years, but I own all 55 of them. I've read books, gone to gynecological seminars, listened to podcasts on the topic, and spoken with other women at different stages of menopause. So today I'm going to share my personal experience. In my teens and 20s, I struggled with endometriosis and other painful conditions associated with being a woman. I ultimately had to educate myself in order to advocate for myself. Those years were very challenging until I was able to self-diagnose and convince doctors to properly treat me for endometriosis. I learned to be my own counsel. A few decades later, I feel much more confident in my ability to advocate for myself as I enter this next chapter. From an archetypal perspective, I am transitioning from the maiden to the crone. I didn't experience motherhood or that archetype, so it's a bigger jump, and I'm not quite fulfilled and done with being the maiden, so to speak. I feel like I'm in no man's land, the in-between. Does anyone else feel like that? As far as my menopause journey, I'm in the process of figuring out where I land. Perimenopause is like menopausal limbo, and it can last for years and years, like a decade or more, with varying degrees of symptoms. No one can tell you exactly how long it will last, but your body. The final notice is when you stop menstruating for a solid 12 months. I have not personally experienced the typical mainstream symptoms like hot flashes, mood swings, brain fog, migraines, irregular periods, uncontrollable weight gain, loss of libido, night sweats, or sleep disturbances. So I figured I was good and had more time on the clock, so to speak. Yay, right? Meanwhile, many of my friends have experienced many or most of these symptoms, and it doesn't sound like fun. Not at all. What I have learned through my research is that there are strategic ways to minimize, mitigate, and even avoid a lot, if not all, of these symptoms. So you have to get ahead of it. I'm sharing my personal experience and options that were suited for me personally with the help of my doctor. We are all different, and you should strategize with your doctor to explore the best options for you and your unique circumstances. I want to share that my actual symptoms turned out to be rather covert. I developed joint issues that began in my mid-40s, but I did not attribute them to perimenopause, and neither did the medical professionals that I sought out to help me. The more obvious culprit seemed to be the wear and tear from being a figure skater, soccer player, and a lifetime runner. Running was my drug, my therapist, and my friend until I was 47, when I was forced to give it up. and I'm still not over it. When I was 47, I woke up one day with both my knees on fire. I could barely walk. It was alarming. I went on to have an MRI and was referred to an orthopedic surgeon and specialist who told me I had a torn meniscus in one knee and osteoarthritis in both knees. Looking back, I suppose the osteoarthritis should have been a clue that I was entering perimenopause. Loss of bone density is a major symptom of menopause. It can be treated and even stopped in its tracks with the right solutions. Studies have shown that HRT, supplements, and resistance or weight bearing exercise can do wonders. So, when I worked with the orthopedic surgeon, I got fluid removed from one of my knees along with a cortisone shot to relieve the pain and inflammation. But this was a temporary solution. He didn't suggest anything to do with my hormones. He said if I wanted to be able to walk, I needed to stop running and could no longer work on my feet for hours on end. He said my knees needed time to heal and recover, and I would never be the same again as far as, running and jumping. So that was that. Pictured here in the Substack story is me getting that MRI in 2017. I was working in the furniture space at the time, and it required me to be running around on my feet all day. I asked my employer if we could make concessions, and they pressured me to quit. That same week, my car was stolen and my apartment went up in flames. Don't worry, the fire department put out the fire, and my car was found abandoned on the side of the road a couple days later. That said, I ended that week unemployed and a little traumatized. But hey, I was no longer employed or anybody's bitch. Pictured here is me cleaning up after that fire in 2017. My knees had been showing signs of, discomfort and decline prior to this event, but it was intermittent, and I just didn't take it seriously until I couldn't walk. The universe has different ways to get our attention, and my job wasn't getting me anywhere as far as feng shui and my practice was concerned. And that was the whole point of the job. What do you do with furniture? You place it, you curate it. I had ambitions of meeting with corporate to be the company's feng shui lady. And it was a well-known national furniture brand that I'm not interested in naming here, but my ideas were not embraced, and I was strung along by management until I was no longer useful. I had been promised the opportunity to meet with corporate and pitch my ideas, but these were empty promises. And I feel like the universe was simply nudging me to cut my losses and move on. So I did. Sometimes spirit has to Nancy Kerrigan you, steal your car, and blow up your life. How else would it have gotten me to quit my job and take a different path? Cars and knees are both symbols of where you're going, and I was going the wrong way. I have been working for myself ever since, but believe me, it has not been easy. I'm still figuring out how to reach more people with feng shui, and I feel like the best way is to live and breathe it, which I am. Okay, back to the topic at hand, perimenopause and menopause. I needed to give you some context for my slow-moving hormonal coup. My first signs became evident at 47, as mentioned, and now at 55, I recently went in for my annual exam with my OBGYN, Regina, and I asked her for blood work and whether I should explore HRT, hormone replacement therapy. If you're experiencing menopausal symptoms or in your late 40s, you can start with blood work to learn what your hormonal levels are. Now, Regina has been working with me for years, and she was puzzled as to why I was still on birth control at 55. She had been trying to wean me off for a few years, but I'm stubborn, and I felt if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It took me years to find the perfect hormonal cocktail of birth control that suited me, and I was in no hurry to give it up. It also serves as a form of HRT that helps with perimenopause. So I didn't want to mess with it because I felt pretty great overall. I take the NuvaRing and I absolutely love it. It has, for me, zero side effects compared to oral contraceptives, which were a nightmare for me. They killed my libido, messed with my pH, and dampened my mood. The NuvaRing was a miracle drug for me that resolved all of the aforementioned issues and even enhanced my sexual response. Because of my endometriosis, I actually have to be on birth control whether or not I'm sexually active. That said, I have no idea if my periods are real or the product of being on birth control. The only way to find out is by going off birth control, which can be a hormonal roller coaster, which I'm not trying to get on. I asked Regina if she could guarantee that I can't get pregnant, and she could not, but she said that the likelihood was extremely low, like 5% or something. I want to emphasize here that the idea of being a 55-year-old with a love child is not on my vision board. I also reminded Regina that I need it for endometriosis. And she reminded me if my periods are actually over, then it's a moot point because menopause actually solves the issue of endometriosis. Woo! No more periods, no more endometriosis. So I'm embarking on a hormonal roller coaster to find out where I land on the perimenopause or menopause spectrum. My doctor is taking me off the ring. Adios, NuvaRing. We had a great run. Now, Regina had me also fill out a questionnaire regarding my menopausal symptoms, and I barely had any. But when she was giving me my pap smear, she noticed that my vagina tissue was thinning and could easily tear and bleed, which is a red flag for perimenopause. As you lose estrogen, you lose collagen and elastin and elasticity in your vagina and elsewhere. So your vaginal tissue can thin, making sex painful and leading to other issues like atrophy and infections, etc. I was confused because my libido is still going strong, but this was a clear sign of the tides changing. She suggested a non-hormonal, minimally invasive laser treatment called the Mona Lisa Smile. No, the Mona Lisa Touch. It's this big laser wand that they insert in your vagina and your vulval area for 5 to 10 minutes that stimulates the tissue renewal with dramatic and lasting results that address the core issue and stimulate the rebuilding of collagen and elastin and elasticity for lasting results. So following the treatment, you can be pretty sensitive for like a few days, 3 days, and you need 3 sessions, 6 weeks apart, with about 3 days of recovery after each treatment. I said, sign me up. I'd heard about all of the inconvenient hormonal estrogen creams, and I wasn't interested in them because you run the risk of exposing your partner to female hormones. They aren't conducive to impromptu sex because you can't just put it on and then go have sex because, like I said, you can expose your partner to the hormones. And they're a surface treatment that only addresses the symptoms and not the root cause. So based on my research, I am not against hormone therapy, but this particular application seemed ineffective, messy, and had risks. So the only issue I had with moving forward with the Mona Lisa laser solution is that insurance doesn't cover it, and it's like $3,000. It's considered a cosmetic procedure, which is total bullshit. Meanwhile, they prescribe and cover Viagra for men like it's life-saving candy. And for women, these messy, less effective, more dangerous hormonal creams. Okay. So Regina said, we have a May special for just $2,400. And I knew my father would help me if I could find a way to explain it to him as medically necessary without being, super graphic. I had to make a case for it that was not sexual. Regina said, it will prevent you from ending up in diapers one day, and that I can have sex well into my twilight years. So there's that. I had her supply me with a medical document that had a price quote on it, as well as emphasize the health benefits of the treatment. I mean, how do you ask your dad for help treating your vagina so you can have better sex? I'm not having that conversation. So I scanned the document, sent it to my dad, and he was cool with it. If you don't ask, you don't get. I was so relieved. To me, this is a life-saving procedure for my love life. It gives me the will to live a long romantic life. I'm single, and I'm doing this with the intention of sharing my life and bed with someone. So, fortunately, I didn't have to explain any of this to my father, and he didn't ask too many questions about my gynecological issues, other than, does insurance pay for it? And it doesn't. So he helped me out. Today, I went in for my blood work results and to have the Mona Lisa Touch procedure that my father had agreed to pay for. Before the procedure, Regina sat with me to discuss my blood work, and the results were shocking considering how good I feel in general. Turns out I have pretty much a zero testosterone, and yes, women produce and need testosterone. My estrogen levels were also very low, and worst of all, I had alarming cardiovascular results. Who knew? It reflected that I am at a high risk for heart attack. Okay. My mother just died of heart issues, and my father had a quadruple heart bypass surgery some years back that saved his life. Let's just say my family has heart issues. How apropos. I do recall having a heart screening in my 30s and doctors detecting a heart murmur, but I never pursued it because, I felt fine. I may need to make some adjustments to my diet, and I definitely need to go to see a cardiologist. Awesome news. It's amazing how great you can feel. Meanwhile, your blood work can tell a different story. So the moral here is that it's good to have a full diagnostic checkup, especially if you're over 50. So now that I know that my hormones are a little wacky, I can proceed accordingly. Regina suggested that since I basically don't have any, I should start on testosterone therapy right away, as in that day, just after my laser therapy. And when I returned for my second Mona Lisa treatment, we could check my blood work again to see how I'm responding to the testosterone and what my levels are and what they look like when I'm not on birth control. She said the testosterone would enhance mental clarity, muscle tone, bone density, weight management, and libido. This should help with my joints and mental acuity, which is great. So, coupled with the laser therapy, I will be operating at a whole new upgraded frequency. And she said, I may or may not even need the estrogen, and we would know in a few weeks. So I had both treatments back to back in one day. I was nervous, but I don't want you to be. So if you're considering having either of these treatments, let me explain how it goes. First, let's start with the laser treatment, aka the Mona Lisa touch. I read a lot about it to prepare myself, and I suggest you do too. It is recommended that you wear loose, comfortable clothes the day of the procedure. I wore a comfy, oversized army green onesie jumpsuit. Green in feng shui and pantsuits represent wood element, so they're great for growth and getting things done. I get a lot of compliments when I rock this look. It's funny because it's not figure conscious or sexy, but it's cool. And people respond favorably to me in this look. So it makes me feel confident. I feel like a badass when I wear it. Besides the outfit, I ate a hearty meal before the procedure because I didn't want to be hangry or feel any more vulnerable than necessary. I am pictured here in a pretty pink hospital gown that my OBGYN Regina gave me to wear before my procedure. I'm also wearing my chakra crystal mala beads for the occasion. I call this hospital chic. The actual procedure is very similar in nature to when you get a pap smear. You're naked in a gown with your legs in, spread in stirrups. They do, however, numb all the external tissue of your vulva and the immediate entrance of your vagina to offset any discomfort from the laser. Now, I didn't love the initial feeling of the numbing cream because it felt prickly, but you know what? That passed quickly and went from prickly to numb. And they give it a few minutes to kick in. Then comes the magic wand, which is connected to this large, intimidating machine. But the laser wand itself is not like huge or crazy. So at the beginning of the Mona Lisa touch procedure, I was holding this little Dixie cup of water in my hand, just bracing myself. And when Regina inserted the laser, it was like vibrating and tingling in a really startling way that caused me to splash some of that water in this spastic motion. And it made me laugh, and the two nurse practitioners in the room. So this kind of lightened the mood, and I was able to relax into the procedure once I realized that the level of pain is minimal. It wasn't particularly painful, just, weird and prickly. You feel these little zaps that make a crackling sound, and it's mildly uncomfortable, but quick, like 5 minutes. After it's over, you'll feel, a little itchy, a little irritated, but not like you need anything more than a martini to take the edge off, if you know what I mean. They put some medicinal gel on the area, and they give you a tiny ice pack to put in your underwear. I was fine until I put that ice pack in my panties. This was the most uncomfortable thing I experienced that day. I don't recommend wearing the ice pack in your underwear. It's only if you absolutely need it, and I would wait until you get home. Next up, testosterone. Procedure number 2. You can get a shot in your ass every month, or a rice-sized slow-release testosterone pellet injected into your hip, which lasts up to 6 months. I went with a pellet. Regina numbed my hip with a numbing injection, and that hurt a little bit, but it wasn't terrible and it didn't last very long. And then she shot the pellet into my hip as I laid on my side with my ass facing the medical staff and my face staring into the wall. It was awkward and funny and quick. So you're done like that. I felt honestly a little shaky, emotional, and nauseous after completing both procedures back to back, but that feeling totally mellowed out once I was home in my cozies with my kitties. My vagina feels slightly sunburned, and I plan to take it easy for a few days. Pictured here in the Substack, I am recovering with my kitty Cinnamon and a greyhound. My hip is also pretty sore from the pellet, and I was informed that you can't take a bath or exercise for 3 days. You also can't remove the bulky bandage that keeps the pellet in place for those 3 days. while it absorbs into your system. I can shower, however, I just can't submerge in water. Obviously, I'm not supposed to have sex for 3 days or intercourse, but that's not a problem since I am currently single. However, I did just match with a nice gentleman on Tinder, so who knows what the future holds. All right, everyone, I'll keep you posted on this journey, and I invite you to subscribe and share this with anyone who might benefit from this story. Many blessings, everyone, and ciao for now.